Hey everybody, welcome to the Sana Q&As. This is Meredith Miller from Inner Integration answering some questions for you. This one, the person says, "Hi Meredith, thank you so much for your videos. They're helping me ask questions I had not previously considered. I recently ended a 6-year relationship. My ex turned when I suffered with depression, having had 2 previous girlfriends who suffered too. He offered no empathy and shut down completely, and even at the end said that was when he stopped loving me. I carried the guilt for a long time and thought I could make him love me again. As I eventually came close to realization I could not, he broke up with me saying he didn't want to hurt me. 3 months later, I found out he had cheated on me and lied about it. On confronting him, he accepted no responsibility and showed no remorse. I decided to write a long letter, finally expressing a lot of emotions he had made me feel were not valid. I didn't want or expect a result. I didn't want or expect a response, but I eventually did get one. He says he is sorry, I deserve better, knows nothing can repair it, but takes responsibility for his actions. He says he regrets it, but is now with the person he cheated on me with, so I'm not sure that part is true. Can narcissists be on a scale, extreme to occasional? If they are able to admit fault, is there a possibility they will change, or is this just a manipulation tactic? I can admit I was far too codependent and want to believe I can change, so why not them? This is the first time he has admitted fault." So yes, it is a scale. It's like a continuum. Dr. George Simon mentioned this in the interview I did with him. Ross Rosenberg writes about this in the human magnet syndrome. It's a spectrum. It's a continuum, right? So you have the extremes on one end, and then you have the lesser narcissists, and then you have down towards the middle, and then you get onto the codependency side of thing. And same with the codependency, right? You can be a little bit codependent, a little bit more codependent, or you can be really severely codependent, right? So a narcissist could be slightly narcissistic, meaning they have some narcissistic traits. Maybe they're aware of some of those narcissistic traits. Maybe they even talk about them. Maybe they're actively working on them. Maybe naturally for them, they don't put others' needs as a priority, but maybe when you talk to them about your needs, they're quickly able to recognize your need. They just, on their default mode, they weren't tuned into your needs. They were tuned into themselves. But maybe, as Ross on his scale, it goes up to +5 on the narcissistic side, right? So maybe +2 is like, okay, they can see it, you bring it up to them, and then they change it and they make it right. There's a lot more room for change when you're talking about these areas of the spectrum that are closer to the middle. Once you're getting into the end, particularly in the narcissistic side, very little chance. +5 that person's going to change it all. +4, probably really rare opportunity that person is actually going to change. If he or she's a +2, +3, chances are the person can change, right? Just like a really severe codependent, like a -5 on the scale, that codependent may never change. That codependent might be so severely codependent that they would prefer to live the rest of their life with a psychopath, a sociopath, a narcissist, a borderline, whomever, because they're so severely codependent. They're so dependent on that abusive person that they just won't change. Like they literally can't see themselves living without that person. So they're willing to accept the abuse. Maybe they even know they're being abused, but they're willing to accept that, right? So it could, on either extreme, the more extreme the person is, the less likely they are to change. Now, when you talk about him admitting his fault and admitting responsibility, you ask, is this a manipulation tactic? Well, sometimes it is a manipulation tactic. In fact, with a true narcissist, it's always a manipulation tactic. Sometimes they tell you they're sorry. Like often you'll read online, oh, narcissists never say that they're sorry. Sometimes they do, especially the covert ones. The more covert they are, the more they're able to lie and distort things in your mind and get you to see things in a different way because they're covering the narcissism, behind there. So sometimes they say that. Sometimes they seem to admit fault. but you really have to listen not just to the words, but also to their actions, predominantly to their actions, though you will find often in the words they reveal themselves. Maybe it's the trickiness of their language, the lawyerliness of their language, where maybe they're not outright lying, but you can tell they're going around the bush. Or here's a perfect one. When you ask somebody a question and they don't answer your question and they say something else, or they answer it with something else that's unrelated, that's called a diversion tactic or evasion, as Dr. George Simon talks about in his book, In Sheep's Clothing. When a person evades or misdirects or, redirects away from the question that you're asking, that person is lying. If you're like, so have you ever cheated on me? Or did you cheat on me with this woman? And they're like, oh, you think I'm having an affair? You, blah, 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 blah. Or they're like, oh, this other thing that's completely unrelated to the topic at hand. And they're just totally avoiding that question that you asked. They don't want to answer that question. So they misdirect you. They lead you down some other trail. And if you're not paying attention, you're going to start going down there, and that's not the point. Like, the point isn't how many times a week you were having sex. The point is, did they cheat or not? Right? Because if you're like, did you cheat on me? And the person's like, when was the last time we had sex? That person didn't answer your question. Not at all. In fact, they're defending themselves, and it sounds like they're defending their actions. So sometimes they don't outright lie. They use these very covert tactics. Other times they will outright lie to your face. Sometimes they're really good at that. Sometimes you can't even tell that they're lying. Even if you were to listen to their heartbeat. So sociopathic person, the more sociopathic they are, the easier it is for them to lie and get away with it and not even show the outward signs that they're lying. So be careful with the language. It's not always real. And the bottom line, the action, right? The action right here is he's with her. So he's probably not trying to get you back right now. He might, maybe he's just clearing the air and relieving himself of the guilt of that. But maybe if he's a true narcissist, he might just want to know that you still desire him. He might just want to know that you're on the back burner. So when things go south with his new supply and she sets him new boundaries, or she says no, or she doesn't give him what he wants, or she shuts him out, or he wants to punish her for that, then he'll ditch her and then he'll go look for some old supply, which could be you because you were an ex. It could be anyone on his list of exes. That could be one of the tactics. We don't know. I don't know from the information that's here. I don't know this person, but I'm saying any of those things are possible. You ask, why are codependents likely to change and not the narcissist? I don't know that there is an easy answer to find out there. My personal opinion on this is the self-responsibility piece. This is the biggest piece. The codependents take on too much responsibility. We get into relationships and we think it's all our fault. We take on too much responsibility. We try to fix and heal and love this person better, and it doesn't work, right? But we take it all on. We're like, is it all my fault? And I tried this and I tried that. And maybe if I gave more, maybe if I did this more, and I did this and I did that and I did that, right? Too much self-responsibility. But the self-responsibility piece is what allows a person to change, because if you can't see yourself, if you can't own your crap, how are you going to be responsible for it to ever change it, right? The cluster B person, for the most part, does not take self-responsibility. It's always somebody else's fault. Poor them, they're the victim, they didn't do anything wrong, horrible stuff happened to them, and it's everybody else's fault. When a person can't take any self-responsibility, when they can't own what they're doing wrong, there is no hope for change. There's no hope for change when a person can't even see what they're doing wrong. So often what you'll find is that the cluster B person, maybe momentarily, has some glimpse of lucidity, some glimpse of clarity, glimpse of remorse, and they tell you maybe they genuinely are sorry in the moment, maybe, but then maybe it's fleeting and maybe it's gone after that, and it's not really long lasting. So if a person has the ability to self-reflect, to notice their patterns, there's a greater chance they can change. The awareness has to come first. If you don't know there's a problem, how do you know what to fix? So if you're not aware that you have a problem, not you, but this person, right? If this person isn't aware that they have a problem, how is he ever going to see how he really hurt you? How is he ever really going to change his ways? Chances are slim, right? So he says he didn't want to hurt you, but he cheated on you and lied about it. So that doesn't match. I don't want to hurt you, but I cheated and I lied and I hid this from you. There's no responsibility and there's no remorse when a person's hiding this. He probably mostly regrets getting caught. Most people do when they get caught. That's generally what they regret. They often don't regret what they did. They often don't make right what they did. They often just really regret getting caught and having their image or their impression tarnished. Maybe he has some guilt about it. Maybe he just told you to get it off his chest. Maybe that was more about him than it was you. Maybe he's genuinely sorry, but he's with someone else. So he's making a choice, and that choice is loud and clear message to you. It's loud and clear. He's choosing her. He's not choosing you. So everyone can change. That's the reality. Everyone can change, but not everyone chooses to. Narcissists or not, most humans choose not to change. It's easier. It's easier not to change. I truly believe that the human condition is not to change until life presses you so hard that you have to make that change. It's why every one of you are listening to this right now. You want to change yourself because you're in pain. You don't want to live like that anymore. You're tired of these bum deals. You're tired of getting into these relationships where people suck your soul dry, where people just take and take from you and you just keep giving and giving. You're tired of that. You want to change, right? Because you've reached that point, that critical mass of pain and suffering where you don't want any more, right? But that's often what it takes in life. It takes something, some accident, some abusive relationship, some situation where it like pierces our denial and we realize like, I don't want to live like that anymore. I don't want to live in that pain anymore. But until you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, we tend to just keep choosing the same thing. It's that repetition compulsion. We just do the same thing, expecting different results, complaining that we're not getting different results, and nothing changes. We just get in deeper and deeper, and we keep repeating that lesson over and over again until we make that change and choose something different. So how do you really know a person can change? I asked Dr. George Simon this question. He says they're changing in real time. They're changing right now in front of you. They're making different decisions. They're not just talking about it. Because talk is talk. They're doing it. They're doing it right now in real time. They're making those changes, right? So it's more about the desire to actually change that predicts whether a person actually will. We talked about being sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? That creates that desire for change. Until the perceived pain of change is less than the actual real pain in the moment, a person won't change. That's what sparks the desire. But then how do you know a person is changing? Is you see it in front of you. You see it happening. They're taking actions, right? And the question is with this guy, what does he have to lose if he doesn't change? Sounds like he's in another relationship. He's got something else going on, something new in his life. Maybe he doesn't feel like he's actually going to lose anything. He already lost you. That's already over. And maybe he has what he wants now. So maybe he has no desire to change. Maybe he's going to do the same thing with that person. You don't know. And all of that is outside of you. Like we can sit here and every one of us listening to this channel is probably like, oh, please, I hope that I'm the exception. I hope that my person is the exception. They're going to be the one to change. We all hope that. We really do. And the challenge, though, is to take a really honest look and see, is that person actually changing? Like, do they have any desire to change? Do they have any reason to change? Or do they seem pretty content with the way things are? And are they continuing to make the same decisions? Are they continuing to take the same actions? They're not changing. The only thing you can do here is turn that focus inward. You talk about the depression. So here's my challenge to you. Why are you depressed? Right? Possibly the depression isn't the root. If this isn't your first, I don't know that this relationship was abusive. We talked about cheating. We didn't talk about abuse. Was this relationship abusive? Did you have other abusive relationships in your life? Does this go back to familial patterns? If it is, maybe that the root of the problem is actually PTSD, and the depression might be a secondary symptom, right? So oftentimes people treat depression, they don't understand why. They think that the depression is the root cause. Maybe they even go to the therapist and the therapist doesn't dig deeper for the trauma. Maybe the therapist stamps the person with depression as if that were the primary problem. But what if that depression is the secondary problem to the PTSD? Until you treat the root, until you treat the trauma, the depression's not going to heal, right? So really take an honest look at that and ask yourself, what is your situation? Is it just that you're depressed? Are you just depressed? Why are you depressed? And if you're depressed, it's really important to ask yourself why you're angry with yourself, because depression is turning anger inward. Is it angry that you put up with it, angry you stayed so long, angry at your own decisions that you made that you regret, going against your own integrity? What are you actually angry about? Are you angry about the abuse? It's normal and natural to be angry about abuse. Again, I don't know that that was a situation here. We didn't talk about that. But if it was, that might be where your anger is coming from. And then the question is, what can you do about it now? That is the only thing that you have power over, the power to change yourself. Sitting around and hoping and praying that this other person is going to change, and writing them letters and trying to make things work and investing a lot of time. Like, it's good to explore options at first, but when you see the actions and you see that person still with someone else, his message is that he's choosing her. So at this point, after the letter, after all that, you got to change yourself. That's the only thing you can change. You got to love yourself again. That's something that you can do for you. And that's something that for sure will change your life, with or without him, is what can you do for you? I'm sending you a big hug.